Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Nacc, and I'm joined by two beauties who do not need to be introduced. But if you are listening for the first time, I will introduce them. That's Raj in the Toronto Maple Leafs hat, boo, and Fab to his right.
Where's your football
It
gear,
is,
guys? It's draft.
Yeah,
It's draft
Roger missed the memo about what type of podcast this is.
I
he's
still have
wearing
my,
Giants too, I
I got
guess.
my football gear. Where's
It's
yours?
wrong cap.
I guess the blue is.
There you
We'll take
exactly.
it, but he's hiding it right now, so it's good.
Yeah, just put
Ladies
your
and
head up.
gentlemen, it is draft week. The moment we've all been waiting for. Yes, the music. I can't wait to hear that on Thursday. We've been waiting for some NFL excitement lately with pretty much free agency all but dried up. And it's the final bit of NFL fun before the schedule release that's supposed to be happening in mid-May, I believe. And then we go into hibernation until July and August. And by hibernation, I mean the NFL, not the Bush League Huddle podcast. We will be here week in and week out, providing you with content. So don't worry about that. So with Draft Peak in mind, we decided it was time to have a mailbag episode. We haven't had one of those in a while. So I want to start off by thanking everyone for all your questions. And we will do everything to our best of our abilities to answer those as adequately as possible. But before we begin, as always, guys, please like our podcast. Be sure to follow and subscribe as well in all our social media platforms: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, anywhere you listen to your pods, so whether it's Apple, Amazon, Spotify, wherever. We are all over the place, so please give us a like and subscribe. We would really appreciate it. So without further ado, let's dive right into this mailbag episode. We're going to start off with friend of the pod, of the Partial Breakaway pod, Mr. Nick asks, the Raiders GM Spytek, is it Spytek or Spitek?
John Spytek.
Spytek.
Okay. Spytek.
It is.
Spytek.
It is spelled, or it is.
It's
pronounced how it's spelled exactly. So Raiders GM Spytek mentioned in a recent presser that he does not believe in the positional bias that exists around drafting running backs too early. So he asks, is top 5, 6 too early for Jeanty? Is running back not a premium position? And some are starting to say 4 or 5 for Jeanty, and others 10th. What do you guys think, Raj?
Yeah, look, it depends on the grade for Jeanty. Everyone is saying about Jeanty, this is the best running back prospect since Saquon Barkley, even better than Bijan Robinson, potentially even better than Jahmyr Gibbs, who, both those guys in the 2023 draft went 8th and 12th. So I think if you're in a position of the Raiders where I think what Nick is referring to is the talent around the team all there already for them to say, hey, we're set at QB, check mark. We're set at offensive line, not sure. We're set at wide receiver, not sure. We're set at defense, not sure. Do we have the luxury to now take a running back that high? I think that's where you could play devil's advocate and say, hey, maybe we're not ready. If you look at the Lions when they took Gibbs at 12, the team was
loaded
to contend, right? Where you're using that running back draft capital relatively high. You're not wasting the years of a position that has on average 3 years. You're really leveraging the prime years of Gibbs. So personally, I think it's fair game. Jeanty is extremely good. We've talked about him already. Everyone's talked about him in mock drafts. I think he's really good. I think he's worth it. I think it's just to see, are the Raiders ready to be able to absorb that type of talent at a non-premium position?
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of good points there. And what would I also say to that? I guess playing maybe devil's advocate is he's probably going to be the best player on the board at that time as well, right? When you're talking about 5, you're talking about 6. People are starting to say, they're starting to gain steam with the Jaguars at 5, and then for sure, obviously at 6, the Raiders might want to take him. What the good news is that you're also drafting high coming up in the second round, right? And then coming up in the third round. So you're always drafting high enough in those. You're drafting at the top of the round. So even spending a high pick on a Jeanty when you're maybe not all the way there kind of assures you of getting, even in that second and third round pick slot, it kind of assures you of getting still a good enough prospect when it comes to that. I do get your point, and I kind of agree with it when you're talking with the Lions. 100%. That was like one of the final pieces that was missing kind of on their offense, so they could have afforded doing that.
If I could just interject, that's a really good point, Nacc, about like you're drafting high in the first and you're drafting high in the second. It reminds me a bit of the Chargers when they took LT at 5. Top of the second round, they took Drew Brees.
Yep.
Right. So it's like there's examples where you're top of the first, top of the second. That top of the second, almost like a lot of draft analysts talk about how it's almost like a late first, right? So I really like that point. And maybe the last thing I'll say on this is just if you look at the Falcons, Bijan, that was kind of the flip side where, Algier was really solid. Did they really need another running back? He's not seen as generational, although he's very good. I think that's another area where you could be like, were they ready for that after taking a tight end the previous year or after taking Drake London and then a tight end the previous year? So, curious what you think, Fab.
I mean, RB is definitely a premium position more than not. I think the problem that a lot of teams, I think the problem that a lot of fans have is that it's not looked at as a premium position anymore because now the NFL is so pass heavy more than it was before, and defenses obviously wins championships. So you think about RB not necessarily as a premium position, but it is, in my opinion. And you need to have, especially when you have a solo RB in the backfield that's going to be getting the rock 20 times a game. It's like, sure, you can get by with a RB by committee. We've seen it before, but a player like Jeanty is a blue chip prospect. We said it last week on the episode. He will help you win games, point blank. And as much as you want to have the roster around him to be able to, encapsulate that offensive potential, at the same time, it's like you're not going to come around to a scenario like this where a player of Genty's caliber is going to be available next year's draft or the year after or the year after. We mentioned Saquon Barkley, we mentioned Jahmyr Gibbs, we mentioned Bijan Robinson, sure, but Jeanty is a cut above those guys on par with Barkley, in my opinion. And we saw what the Giants did; they had holes in their entire offense and team, and they still drafted him. For better or for worse, it is what it is. It's happened, right? Because it's a blue chip prospect, and fine, you know what I mean? Like and for all accounts, he was fantastic as a player on the team. So I don't see this as a bad deal at all for the Raiders to take Jeanty. I mocked it as such. Nacc, you said it last week. He's probably going to end up going to the Jaguars, and that's kind of where a lot of the conversations have been going to today, just for all the smokescreen and all that stuff. But no, I see. I think that the idea of RB not being a premium position is a little bit. It's slowly going out the door. I think we're starting to see a bit of a RB resurgence, and the gap between Jeanty and Hampton and Henderson and Judkins, it's big. It's big enough to warrant the top 5 consideration, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't. I'm going to disagree with the running back being a premium position. I think if you look at, obviously, this year was a different story. A top end running back won the Super Bowl, but if you go back previous years, Pacheco being there in the backfield, the Chiefs always had these kind of nobodies back there, winning Super Bowls. You see teams, carrying two guys at the position and rolling with that, and not always having that like primo back. I also think though, I think going back to Roger's point with the Bijan Robinson, you have to be. Yes, you go out and get a Jeanty. He's one of those generational players for sure, but he's got to be a good fit for your team. Whereas, like Bijan Robinson, in my opinion, didn't go into the greatest fit team wise, right, to succeed right away, even though he is that generational talent. So I think fit is very important too when you're drafting a player that high.
So I don't disagree. So about the premium position part, yeah, I'm fine. We disagree on that, but it's also a luxury, and I think we can agree on that part too. Like not every team can necessarily afford the luxury of having a premium position like an RB because they do have other holes in the roster. But you can see what happens when you do have a top end running back in your team and how it really puts you in the upper echelon of quality as far as the roster is concerned.
If you're going to compare it to Philly, they also did have the
100%.
best offensive line in the league, right?
100%.
That
Yeah,
helps.
the situation does help too, for sure. But then take your Kansas City Chiefs example.
He was with the Giants for 5 years. Did it help?
But take your Chiefs example. Take your Chiefs example. If Pacheco, by all accounts, great running back for sure. But can we agree that? Well, okay, fine, thank you. So to your point, he's not even that great of a running back anymore.
I can't.
And they won 2 straight Super Bowls without the great running back.
I can't stand watching him play, man.
But look, Saquon Barkley.
But look what they would have had. Look what they would have a blue chip prospect like.
But did Barkley not go to the Giants though? Did Barkley not go to the Giants? And where did it lead them?
Exactly.
Playoffs, baby.
No,
one season.
That's where Fab. I really disagree with your point because right now I'm looking at and notwithstanding the 2024-2025 season of Barkley, I'm looking at an ESPN redraft of the 2018 draft. Josh Allen number 1, Lamar Jackson number 2. People had Fred Warner 3, Minka Fitzpatrick 4, Jair Alexander 5. They didn't mock Barkley until 15 for the Cardinals. Imagine that. And this is something that we talked about in the pod. The fact that there are not as good QBs in this draft bumps kind of everyone a little bit up, right? Imagine if the QB class of last year was this year. I don't know if Jeanty's going in the top 10. Like if you have Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels,
Gibbs went 12. So yeah, I agree with that.
Drake May, what's the jump off point with the QBs, right? Like,
well, nobody expected Penix to go 8.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if Barkley, if Jeanty goes that high, if there's way better QBs in this draft. So it's an interesting point, though.
Yeah. We'll move on. I actually had a question for you guys now that we're on the subject, and we're talking about teams potentially going up and seeing this, and trading up and Jeanty and all that good stuff. What team, Fab, is the one to watch on Thursday night?
Yeah, I just alluded to it before. I think it's the Jaguars. I think they're going to be the ones that because no one was expecting Jeanty to go to 5, and so whatever happens there obviously changes the draft plans for the Raiders and other teams that could be looking for a running back. So those are the ones that team is we want to be interested in. And I feel like every single QB needy team is going to be one to watch on Thursday night too.
Yeah.
Right. Like we talk about how, like it's everyone's, it's the worst kept secret, like how much Dart is being expected to go to the Steelers at 21 if he lasts that long, or if the Giants trade back in and try to cut the Steelers grass, or then where's Jalen Miller going to go to another QB needy team that might draft back in, might trade back in. So for me, it's not necessarily one team. I think it's a few teams, and even the Saints. Maybe not Sanders is going to go at 9 anymore. Potentially not. We're not really sure.
Who knows, man?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, there's so many. The QB situation, I guess, further to like alluding back to what Roger said about how the draft is not very QB strong, which I don't disagree with. Makes you wonder who is gonna either reach for a quarterback needy team or trade back into the first round, because those second round picks, those high second round picks, they hold value. Like you said that they hold value quite a bit, right? And so when you're the Titans or you're the Browns or you're the Giants and you have a high second round pick, that's basically a first rounder for a lot of those teams, right? So drafting back into the first, using your second round, whatever you have capital later on in the draft to draft your quarterback at 21, 26, let's say, because I see a lot of mocks being I see a lot of trades being mocked to the Chargers or even to the Rams. So yeah, it's not one team. It's a bunch of teams, and it's really the ones that need a quarterback.
Raj, what about you? Do you have one in particular?
One in particular, the Bears, to me, is really fascinating. Depending on what happens with the Jaguars, if they go with Jeanty, I think there was a lot of Ryan Pace kind of alluded to maybe wanting to trade up. But if they do trade up, I think it's for Jeanty. If they don't trade up, they could wind up with either Mason Graham, defensive line, Michigan, they could wind up with one of the tight ends, either Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, which would be amazing for them. I'm not the biggest fan of them drafting tight end with Cole Kmet, but I really think that could be interesting. Or they could go with an edge, whether it's Jalen Walker or Micah Williams. I think that would be really interesting as well. So they're in a position where they stand back at 10, like they're going to get a really good player, or they could trade up and go for a running back, which I think would be worth it. That'd be a force multiplier for their team with Ben Johnson, because I think we all agree Roschon Johnson and especially DeAndre Swift, we're just unsure about them. And then maybe like kind of another team, a more under the radar team, is the Seahawks. I've seen a lot of mocks, and Fab, I think you mocked them with a wide receiver, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, you mocked them with an offensive lineman.
I mocked them with a lineman. I think I mocked them with Kelvin Banks.
Kelvin Banks. I'm seeing a lot of mocks where people have them with wide receivers, which I think their fan base is very keen to have an offensive lineman taken, because that O-line has been a disaster over the past few years. And we saw how that affected Geno Smith, and especially with Sam Darnold, who's not great under pressure. I'd be shocked if they went wide receiver. But it's a bit similar boat as the Texans too, where it's wide receiver O-line for those two guys, for those two teams.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Mine was the Bears as well. They also still hold the Panthers' second-round pick as well, so a little bit more ammo. Still with that trade that they made. I think this is the last year that they have
Bryce Young trade.
Yeah, Bryce Young trade. Mm-hmm. I think this is the last year they have some of their picks, so they might have some ammo. And I think with the smoke that the Jaguars might, grab Jeanty at 5, they might have to trade with the Patriots and hopefully go up. And we're just speaking about, Jeanty and Fitz, like they just overloaded and overhauled that O-line. So I think Jeanty to the Bears would be an excellent fit and would definitely help also Caleb Williams with his development. So definitely one of the teams to watch for sure. Next question. Yep.
Sorry if I can just jump in. If Jeanty does go to the Bears, especially with Ben Johnson there right now, how high are we drafting him in fantasy?
Jeanty?
Yep. Like RB, from an RB standpoint, not round or whatever. Like RB5? Is that too crazy? Figuring what Ben Johnson did with Jahmyr Gibbs and with Montgomery, who was basically an afterthought.
Fantasy Pros has him as the 10th RB, tier 2. He's behind McCaffrey and in front of Kyren Williams, Breece Hall, James Cook.
Yeah, I mean, where he's going to be drafted, that's one thing. I feel like he'll be drafted higher than some of those guys, James Cook, maybe Breece Young as well.
Yeah,
James he might Cook be drafted at somewhere 5 or 6 running back taken. If I had to guess. Like I remember when Clyde Edwards-Helaire was drafted by KC, and he went top 5 and 6 in drafts that I was doing overall. Like never mind, 5th running back taken. He went like 5th or 6th overall total in drafts. So you get a new sexy name out there. No one's ever had him before. You want to be the first one. People do crazy things. So I'm saying for sure. I don't know. I could see him going in the top 10 in drafts, and someone getting crazy at the 8 or 9 spot.
If I recall, Bijan didn't have an amazing rookie season.
He didn't,
and that's partly.
We're still kind of waiting for an amazing season from him, right?
I think he had it.
Apparently, it's supposed to be coming up this year.
I think he had it. He wasn't he like 1,400 rushing yards, 1,300 rushing yards? Like I think
last year he had a very good season. Last year
on the cusp,
finished top 5 off the top of my head.
But it's not a foregone conclusion that you take a top 5 running back that right away they're going to provide top 5.
No. I agree. I definitely agree with that. Moving along. We have a question from Guido, actually. He is saying, should the Dolphins draft a QB in the later rounds? And if yes, who do you see as a fit? Raj.
Dylan Gabriel, Oregon. Lefty. Samoan as well.
Yeah, it's like
poor
man's Tua,
Yeah, like quick distributor, like shorter guy, not as strong of an arm, but Similar type of offense.
You mean his arm is less strong than Tua's?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
For sure. But Tua thrives without necessarily without having the strongest arm in that type of quick strike offense. I think like Dylan Gabriel, it's fourth, fifth round. I did see a mock on Mock Draft Database that had the Dolphins taking Shedeur Sanders.
At 12?
Yeah,
At 12?
12 or is it 12 they have, or it's 14?
12 or 13. Somewhere it's 12 or 13.
Somewhere around that range. It's
13.
very interesting. I don't have the Tua contract details necessarily in front of me.
I think they have too many holes to go
They have
QB
too many.
first round.
They definitely
And
have
you
too
just
many holes.
signed him to, and you just signed Tua to that massive extension. Like that would be shocking to me if they went QB in the first round.
I agree, but to me, Dylan Gabriel is perfect fit with the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the guys that you would see in the later rounds, and they 100% are drafting a quarterback in this draft. Like I can't see them not coming away with at least one.
Yeah.
Fab, anyone else who kind of jumps off the page?
I mean, Milrow makes a little bit more sense to me just because of the whole Bama connection, but again, that wouldn't be a later round pick for them. So he definitely won't be there unless they trade back into the first round for him, unless they really want Milrow. Dylan Gabriel makes a lot of sense from the lefty standpoint, I feel like. But you can look at McCord going there. You can look at
that was what I was going to say. Is McCord is an interesting one. He's going to go really late, right?
I like McCord a lot, man. Like I know he's going to be a later round QB, but like I like him a lot. I feel like there's a lot of work that can be done there, and he's relatively young, right? So I don't know. Sorry, I just feel like he's not getting. Like I understand why he's not coming from a massive program like everybody else, sure, and maybe he doesn't have the same measurables and the stats, but I feel like McCord is a little bit of a underrated prospect from a QB standpoint.
Quickly, the flip side is while you're going late round, why go with a safe pick and such a similar guy to Tua? Maybe take a Quinn Ewers. He was the number one recruit. Played at Texas the past 2 seasons, but he was the number one recruit out of high school years ago with Ohio State. Even a Will Howard, those guys I think might have a bit more potential, a bit more size, a bit more arm strength. So there's a flip side where maybe you take more of a risk. Maybe the reward, it's high risk, high reward, but that could be interesting as well.
Yeah, I think I like that. Moving right along, we got a couple of questions from Robbie. He asked, what makes your podcast different from others in the fantasy football space? Fab?
Wow, this is a great question. So let's take a little bit of a few minutes here to sell ourselves. So apart from the fact that we're just 3 regular guys that have daytime jobs and do this for fun, shows you how committed we are to the cause. How we pull up every single day. We do our own social media stuff. You're interacting with us. You're not interacting with some other people on other podcasts on their social media. So right off the bat, you're helping us. We're helping you. You're dealing directly with the source material over here. On top of that, there is a little bit of humor on this podcast too. We focus specifically on, and Robbie, you should know this, okay? We focus a little bit more specifically on 2 quarterback leagues. We dust in a little bit of 1 quarterback league, super league stuff in here too. Our takes are our own, and we disagree all the time. Makes for a very fun and energetic and interesting show.
All the time.
We never agree on anything, especially when it comes to running back value.
I tag Raj.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's basically 2 against 1 for most of the time. And not the good 2 versus 1 that Deshaun Watson.
Okay, I think we're gonna tag in Raj here. What do you think, Raj?
What Deshaun? Are we gonna start saying Shannon Sharp instead of Deshaun?
I was actually gonna go over to that, but then I got cut out by the host,
like Chris Russo. And I think Fab hit the nail on the head. That was a very good promo. We might have to cut that and use it for some more YouTube shorts for promotion. Yeah, I think you said it well. It's we cut the middleman. We do all the social. I think the 2 QB aspect is important because there's really not enough podcasts that really focus on two QB start sits. Our love hate segment, I think, is great for that. Where we're not just cherry picking the highest rated players. We're really trying to find who are those diamond in the roughs. Who are those players that are it's going to be difficult. You have that like kind of coin flip type decision to make on a weekly basis, whether it's with your two QB or whatever. So I think that's where we've created a nice. Hopefully, we're starting to create a nice niche for ourselves.
I don't think I could add anything else to that. I think you guys said it perfectly. We try to have fun with it. Basically, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
as Fab alluded to, we're three men with jobs, with day jobs. So we try to have a lot of fun with this. We didn't know where it was going to get to when we first started, but look, we're what 60, 70 episodes deep, and we're still having a lot of fun with it, and very motivated to keep going. So
yeah,
that's what matters.
Yeah, exactly. Robbie had another question for us. Fast forward to September, and it's draft week. What are your 3 first rounds looking like, assuming you're drafting at the 10th spot? I'm assuming he also alludes to the fact that it's a 10-team league. So you would have the pick 10 and 11, and then 22. Raj? Tough question.
Robbie, yeah.
Robbie's looking to pick 10th this year, I guess.
Lacking some details, Robbie, but I'll do my best to try to fill. I guess this is kind of like a live, like on the spot mock draft. For me, look, my strategy is typically, and we last year we did like a big strategy, like 2 QBs episode. I know we'll do another one again. My strategy has always typically been wait on the QB till round 3 or 4. I'd probably do the same. So in the first round, 10th pick, I'm looking at a Malik Neighbors, Puka. If people are a little bit down on Puka because of Devontae Adams, I'm all in on Puka. That's where I would be in my first pick. Second pick, try to get a running back on the turn. So anything that's it's a bit tough. Like Achan, I'm a bit weary of him. Always injury prone. I'm not touching Christian McCaffrey. So you know what? I'd probably go wide receiver again. I'd probably be okay with like AJ Brown, maybe Lad McConkey, and then at the
very very early.
That's
PPR. I think he could have a big season. Tyreek Hill, I'm not touching, but I would say because I'm not enamored with I still don't want to touch Derrick Henry as great of a season as he had. I'd probably wait till the 3rd round to then take like a Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, maybe Ashton Jeanty is available there. So I'd probably go wide receiver, running back, depending on who's. I'd ideally want to go wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, then QB, or then QB at the 3rd.
Yeah, that's making you out, and potentially you're first of all, you have to hit on that QB who'd be in the 4th round is where you're taking him, top of the 4th. You'd have to hit on him, and then you're waiting, what is that, 20 more picks before you pick again, and you automatically probably have to go QB again because there's going to be nobody left at the end of the 5th round to pick. I think perfect example of the draft strategy you just laid out is what Nick did last year. He had Justin Jefferson, then took Chase, and then at the third pick it was either Kyron and then Jaden Daniels. But he had to have hit on Jaden Daniels. If he, let's say, would have had Caleb Williams there's no way he would have won the league last year. There'd be absolutely no shot, right? So I think it's a fine line to what you're saying when you're drafting 10th. Like, depending on what QB is there at that spot, which there could be, quite a few. Like, what happens if I'm assuming it probably won't in 2 QB leagues, but what happens if Jaden Daniels falls to you at 10? Like, you're letting that go for 2 wide receivers?
That's why it's like a good point, and that's why it's a bit of a hard exercise because you're just kind of trying to do it on the fly.
Yeah.
One thing, if I look at kind of the QBs like this year, look, maybe I'm just trying to make my own argument, but I could see a lot of potential progression in some of the QBs that maybe might potentially fall. I'd expect Trevor Lawrence to hopefully have a better season than last year. Tua hopefully is healthy. Dak Prescott is back. Again, it's a lot of wishful thinking. Michael Penix, let's see what's going to happen with him. Bryce Young could be a really interesting pick. He was really good at the tail end. Geno Smith, Sam Darnold. Again, it's a very optimistic view of it. But Caleb Williams, I'd expect a lot of progression with some of these guys who maybe fell through.
For sure.
Hard to project.
Fat,
Yeah,
what
it's
do
hard
you?
to
What's
project. And Jamar Chase last year fell to 10. He should not have gone 10th, and that was because of the whole contract negotiation.
Right.
There was concern about him even playing at all. Like I'm looking at the draft of last year, and there were guys like AJ Brown that went before him. And no knock on AJ Brown, but that should not have happened in all fairness, and that's just because of the whole uncertainty that exists with Jamar Chase. Then getting Jaden Daniels and at the end of the third. Yeah, that helped. I brought him to the end. That brought him to that was the big pick for him. So a lot of it depends on who's going to be there for you when you're drafting. I typically like to draft contrarian in the sense that if I see like a run on quarterbacks, I'm not going quarterback. I'm going wide receiver or running back, and typically it's going to be wide receiver, especially in a PPR league. I like the idea of going wide receiver at that spot, and then going quarterback heavy later on. But it really depends on what's available at that time too. And I think we're going to get this question is better asked, in my opinion, after tomorrow, because I feel like a lot of the chips and the dominoes are going to fall tomorrow. Going to obviously make our decisions a lot clearer. It's a great question though, but I would typically in this scenario here, I think I would go wide receiver, and then quarterback, then just load up on running backs, maybe running back by committee type thing, like not looking necessarily for a hero RB. And just stock up on wide receivers and quarterbacks, especially in a 2 QB league or in a super flex league.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me is there's like the rookies that do come in. Like there's no Jaden Daniels this year, right? That's gonna fall to that spot. Like there's not a
For sure.
maybe you're gonna get Cam Ward there. Like you're not gonna be happy with Cam Ward as your QB1,
QB2, like I don't know how happy I would be even with him as a QB2.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
No, I wouldn't.
My point is a high QB drafted. So Daniels was drafted too, right? And he was drafted. It was either top of the fourth or end of the third for us when he took Daniels. There's not going to be one of those guys available from the draft that blows up and has an MVP like season, is what I'm trying to say. Like it's not going to happen, But we'll move along. We have Cousin Pete as well. A couple questions here. What kind of production can we expect from Hollywood Brown and Christian Kirk? Why don't you start us off here?
Well, I've always been a big Hollywood Brown fan, so I'm a little bit biased over here, but he was injured for the majority of the season, and he came back on, I think, the last 2 regular season games or last regular season games, and he played for the playoff run. By all accounts, he played well. I mean, considering the rust that existed for not playing for the entirety of the season. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know he caught at least a touchdown and did have some games where, from a fantasy perspective, would have been a decent outing.
He did not.
No, he caught a touchdown, and he had a few games where he put up.
No, in the playoffs, no, he didn't cut. He against
regular
the Bills, 3 for 35. Against the Eagles, 2 for 15.
He didn't catch a TD in the regular season last game.
Regular season, no, he didn't even play the last game against Denver.
Well, there goes my argument. So yeah, going back to Robbie's question,
We disagree.
we got full-time jobs. We can't take all the stats. I don't have an encyclopedia.
I was trying to. I knew Raj was fact checking that. I was like, I'm just gonna let him take it because I'm fantasy relevant. I don't know.
My keyboard's too loud, man. I can't do it.
It's not wide receiver 4. Get away out of a good story. It's
wide receiver 4. Hollywood Brown. Wide receiver 4.
I think. Look, he's like you said. He missed the whole season, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't want to hold it against him, but I was super high on Hollywood Brown last year before he got injured. I remember we had a whole.
Kirk went where? Raiders?
Texans.
And excuse me.
I'm a lot lower on Christian Kirk because I feel like Houston's going to draft a wide receiver, so that might bump him down a peg. I know that Tank Dell is expected to be out all of 2025, but I'm not as high on Christian Kirk as I am on Hollywood Brown. But these are still like wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 for me. But I have a little bit more optimism for Hollywood Brown, just because I feel like I don't know, better offense,
It's a better
obviously,
QB. Yeah.
better QB.
My issue with Hollywood Brown is he's been pegged as a speed guy his entire career, and he's only averaged more than 13 yards per reception once in 2020, and it was 13.3. Outside of that season, afterwards, he's been at pretty much 11 yards per reception every single year. So he's been pegged as a deep threat, and he doesn't have great hands. And his production has really gone downhill since he's been in Baltimore. Only one 1,000-yard season in his career. So I personally like Christian Kirk a lot more consistent, does a bit more, in my opinion, after the catch. He had that 1,000-yard season with Jacksonville in 2022. The year after, I think he was pretty solid in 12 games. He had almost 800 yards, 3 TDs. I think he'll mesh relatively well with Nico Collins in the slot, with CJ Stroud as well. I wouldn't be too concerned about the wide receiver. If I feel like I recall, and Fab, you could fact check me on this. I feel like I recall the Texans being able to sustain 3 wide receivers relatively well in Nico Collins' rookie year. Noah Brown, Tank Dell, and Nico Collins both had relatively good seasons. So I definitely like Christian Kirk more on that front.
Yeah, I think solid arguments for that, but I probably do give the edge a little bit to Kirk, although they both did battle pretty gruesome injuries last year. So pretty, we'll see what happens this year when they come back. And then one last question to end it off, guys. Cousin Pete, one more time. What would the market be to trade for guys like Jeanty in Dynasty? Raj, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think it's at least like a first, a second. I would think of like a first. It depends on like what picks you have, but at least like a first and a second, I think. And then you're obviously swapping those. That's like what I've seen in like Dynasty threads and in Reddit.
I'd probably go even as
Yeah.
far as like 2
You-
first-round picks.
I was
yeah,
gonna say
you're paying a
you're
hefty amount.
trading away future draft picks for him. You're
Yes,
not.
yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for
It's
sure,
gonna be like 2026 stuff.
for sure.
You're trading.
Yeah, I mean, you could maybe put in you could add in a player maybe somewhere
Yeah.
like a to lower the amount of draft capital, but I think 2 first-round picks gets this done, and I don't think anything less than that. Like the guy's just gonna be like, well, no, I'm just gonna take my chances with Jeanty.
Like
Yeah.
one guy I see said like he has the first overall, and he was offered second overall, second round, second pick, second round 6 pick, and second round 10th pick. Like crazy haul. Like
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like
Yeah.
but if you're drafting rookies, right? Like
yeah,
this
exactly.
this
Yeah,
year, what is like? It's not that stacked of a class rookie wise, right? Like, is it that like last year would have been the year to like go crazy, right? To recoup picks like that if like a player of that caliber was available. Because then
yeah,
you could have gone after like a Neighbors, a Harrison, and then like set your wide receiver room up for the next 10, 12
Yeah.
years. This year, man, like
Tyler Warren's might be maybe the second best fantasy player this year.
I was.
I don't know if it's Omarion Hampton. I don't know if it's Travion Henderson. I don't know if
That
it's
was gonna be my next question.
is it
Actually, like,
Golden? Is
who are
it
you picking at
Golden? Yeah,
102?
is it the Troya? Is it like what are your needs first of all, and what are you
Yeah.
picking with these picks? Because like yeah, and then it also depends on how many teams are in your dynasty as well, right? So look, to answer your question, I think it starts at 2 first-round picks, and then
Hmm.
maybe you can maybe finagle 1 first, then like a third and another player, depending on who that player is. I don't know too much about Dynasty, but I think that's probably somewhere around along the lines of
It's
where
it's a haul. It's a massive haul. That's what you're getting. If you're trading away the number one pick in your dynasty draft, you're getting a lot of picks for the future, and you're probably getting a warm body at least for this season.
Brees Hall.
Yeah, Brees Hall is a guy I've been seeing around too. His name's been throwing around in dynasty leagues as a trade candidate. I think guys want to get rid of them.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, that about wraps it up, guys. Please follow us and like us on all the social media accounts, and please listen to us on all the podcast platforms of your choice. Enjoy the draft. It's honestly, yeah. You will be hearing a lot of that tomorrow, and honestly, I'm very excited. This is going to be. I think there's going to be a lot of movement, guys. So there's GMs talking about a lot of movement in the top 10, which like you don't really see a lot all the times, like that high. I'm really excited to see. I thought last year was going to be like a crazy draft, but this one I think with like a lot less surefire, I guess, positions, like especially the QB. There's going to be a lot of movement, and I'm really excited to see. And don't miss us next week when we'll have a full recap of the draft and best fits for players that were drafted at their teams. So yeah, guys, thanks again, for listening, and enjoy the draft. Raj, the music.
2-1 cap.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Just no Maple Leafs caps, okay, on the pod.
Let's go. Let's go, Roger. Let's go with your hat out the door. Throw it out of here. Maple Leafs. People are going to think it's a Toronto podcast. I'm from Montreal.
Peace out.
Peace out, everyone.
Goodbye.